Welcome to our virtual awards ceremony. An important part of ALERA's mission is the public recognition of excellence and contributions to our fields of employment relations, MIER and related fields. So as current president, I'm delighted to announce first of all the ALERA Awards and then Life Members. This is to celebrate the excellence and contributions made by members of our community in various ways and at different levels. Sadly, this year we are unable to present these honours to people in person. So we're posting the awards to recipients' local IR societies and suggesting that the various constituent bodies of ALERA present them to recipients in person when they are able to do so. Meanwhile, the recipients have all been invited to join us online during this ceremony. We cannot give them the rounds of applause they so richly deserve, so please use the messaging system via the conference platform or email or social media to send congratulations to them. During the conference, people have messaged me saying, "What is ALERA?" Well, as shown on the slide, we are a federal association with constituent bodies in all states and territories as listed. There are links to each one of them with web addresses so you can get more information, join or renew your membership. You can also connect with each of them by going to the ALERA website that's at the bottom of each slide. I won't mention all of these excellent constituent bodies, which are all very lively and have many local activities going on, except that in the Northern Territory, the people running our association there have moved on. We're looking for new volunteers or any suggestions that you may have for people in our field in the Northern Territory or people who know anyone there who might be able to help pick up the baton in the NT. ALERA also is the Australian affiliate to the International Labour and Employment Relations Association, and its website is on the slide. And as you heard in the discussion with Ray Cooper earlier in the conference, we will be hosting an ALERA World Congress again for the third time in Australia, all being well in 2027. So we look forward to that. And meanwhile, moving to the next slide, we offer ALERA Awards in recognition of significant contributions to employment and industrial relations and related fields. These awards are conferred following a process of nomination and scrutiny by ALERA's constituent bodies based in the various states and territories. This year, we're delighted to welcome 5 deserving recipients. Marian Baird, AO, PhD, is a Fellow of the Australian Academy of Social Sciences, and she is Professor of Employment Relations and Head of the Work and Organisational Studies discipline and presiding Pro-Chancellor at Sydney University. She's been a member of the IR Society of NSW for 40 years and was president for a couple of them. Her research focuses on the position of women in the workforce and in society. We often hear her providing expert commentary in the media, most recently on Radio National, only a few days ago. She was named in Apolitical's Top 100 Most Influential People in Gender Equality list. Marian received the Edna Ryan Award for making positive change for women in the workforce and the Financial Review Westpac Women of Influence Award in Public Policy. She's currently co-editor-in-chief of the Journal of Industrial Relations, the JIR. Bradon Ellem, PhD, is currently Professor of Employment Relations, Sydney University, where he's a past head of work and organisational studies. He's also a past committee member of the IR Society of New South Wales. In addition, he served as co-editor-in-chief of the JIR for 17 years and Associate Editor of the journal Labour History for 18 years. 2 very long periods of service to 2 different journals. His research has examined IR in the resources sector, government IR policy and union strategy. He's Senior Honorary Research Fellow at the University of WA. That university's press has published his important work, The Pilbara from the Desert's Prophets Come. His work has also been published in leading academic journals as well as in commissioned reports and submissions. He has held the prestigious Montague Burton Visiting Professorship at Cardiff University in Old South Wales in the UK. Chris Meallin holds a Master of Industrial and Employment Relations, among other qualifications. He's a Trustee Director, Holden Employees Superannuation Fund. He has had more than 40 years of experience in IR and HR in the airline and vehicle manufacturing industries, with General Motors, Holden, and a forerunner to Qantas, along with teaching at his alma mater, Monash University, for many years. Chris has also provided valuable service at Monash on advisory boards and committees. But he's not a one-eyed Monash person, as he's also studied at RMIT and also UQ, where we first met last century. He has served for many years on the committees of ALERA and the IR Society of Vic, where he's been the secretary, a vice president, and also an avid photographer. In addition to IRSV, he's also served on a committee for the Australian HR Institute. John Payne Llb is a principal with Hall Payne since the firm's inception in 1991. From my time in Queensland, I know that he's one of Queensland's most highly regarded IR lawyers, although John identifies first as a trade unionist and then as a lawyer. He was awarded Preeminent Lawyer in Queensland for employee and union work. His expertise is highly sought after on questions of corporate governance, constitutions, contracts, mergers, health and safety. He likes to confront injustice. He says imagination makes the difference between good and great lawyers. He's a director of 2 charities, the Alzheimer's Association of Queensland and the Child Labour Schools Company in India. He's a past secretary, IR Society of Queensland, and a past member of the ALERA Committee. Craig Stevens Llb has a diverse work history. After serving as a police officer, he worked for the Police Association while studying law. This was his first foray into IR, and he's been focusing on IR and related fields ever since. His main professional experience was in the South Australian Crown Solicitor's Office, including heading its employment law group before beginning as a sole practitioner 3 years ago. He takes on a variety of legal and non-legal IR matters and things such as policy review and development, employee grievances, and coaching HR staff on the management of employee misconduct and unsatisfactory performance. Craig has been a long time and active member of the committee of ALERA SA, including as president, and has been a member of the ALERA committee in various roles. Like me, he's an aficionado of the world's greatest rock and roll band, the Rolling Stones. And now we award the ALERA Life Membership to 4 very deserving recipients. This is the highest honour that ALERA can confer. Keith Hancock AO is Professor Emeritus, Flinders University. He's not only a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences in Australia, but also, like his excellent wife, Professor Sue Richardson, a past president of that prestigious academy. While he was president, not only was he a vice-chancellor, he also chaired the Committee of Review of IR Law and Systems, appointed by the Hawke government, which produced what is known as the Hancock Report, which we still ask our students to read these days. He must have been exceptionally busy then. He was subsequently a senior deputy president of the Australian IR Commission, and Keith conducted his PhD at the London School of Economics, where he followed in the footsteps of his friend, the late Joe Isaac, who was the founding president of the IR Society of Vic. In retirement, Keith has undertaken research on the history of wage fixing in Australia and also goes sailing. Keith was the co-founder of the IR Society of SA, now known as ALERA SA, which was the second state-based IR society. He later became the president of ALERA, which was then known as the IR Society of Australia. Brian Lacey AO was a mature student when he read for a law degree and then a Master of Commerce. He has had an extensive career in IR, from having been a practicing solicitor to now being a barrister, with 8 years as a senior deputy president of the Australian IR Commission. Brian was an Indonesian interpreter with the Australian Defence Forces and served in Vietnam and elsewhere. He was a district registrar of the Federal Court, and among his various other roles served as an administrator for the Christmas Island and the Cocos Islands. He then led the response to the tragic asylum seeker boat disaster in 2010 and to the Christmas Island detention centre riots the following year. He also chaired some of the island's most important committees. But even more importantly, Brian served as president of ALERA and as president of the IR Society of Vic. As the current IRSV patron, he continues to be involved in the IRSV and its acclaimed annual advocacy course and an annual patrons dinner. Joanna Minchington, MBA, LLB, among other qualifications, is Employment Relations Manager, Queensland Hotels Association. Her focus is on assisting employers to understand their obligations and responsibilities and working with them to achieve positive business outcomes. Joanna has represented the Australian Hotels Association on the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Workplace Policy Committee and has represented it in several of the Fair Work Commission reviews of common and award-specific matters. Joanna also worked with the Australian Medical Association and the Australian Salaried Medical Officers Federation. She is a graduate of the University of Southern Queensland and of Griffith Uni, and has also served Griffith on advisory boards. She's a past president, IR Society of Queensland, and a past president and treasurer of ALERA. John Nyland AC is Professor Emeritus and former Vice-Chancellor UNSW, where he had been a student. He rose up at that uni from being an undergraduate to the top of the uni, and UNSW's most renowned building was named after him, with the Royal Australian Institute of Architects awarding him its President's Prize for the campus redevelopment that he led. He also has experience in other unis. His PhD is from Illinois and he worked at Cornell and the ANU. The Singapore Management Uni awarded him an honorary doctorate. He's much sought after for strategic advice by university leaders. He has contributed greatly to the theory and practice of conflict resolution and on bargaining. John is a past editor-in-chief of the JIR and past president of ALERA, then the IR Society of Australia. He's a past president also of the International Labour and Employment Relations Association, then known as the International IR Association. In a segue to the next part of the program, years ago, John hosted a lunch with a publisher, Russell Lansbury, and me, when on the back of a serviette, we sketched out the outline for the first edition of the book, which his research centre sponsored with the publisher. And in a moment, Sharon Burrow will launch the 7th edition of that book. Please congratulate all of those who have received awards. Also think about who might be nominated in the future. The process for making nominations is via our various constituent bodies. As far as I know, life membership has never been awarded to a woman before now, nor to anyone who lives outside Sydney. So we are taking steps towards more diversity, which is welcome, but we should still do better in terms of diversity. In the next round, I would hope to see more women nominated, as well as Indigenous people and those from parts of Australia who have not yet submitted such nominations. One of the things that ALERA is considering is whether we might offer the opportunity to our experienced members to become fellows of ALERA, to honour more people and give them recognition like many other associations do. What else does ALERA do currently, as well as holding conferences like this one? We occasionally have webinars. We, of course, publish the Journal of Industrial Relations, which has been discussed earlier today. And we sometimes make submissions and generally try to promote our field. What else might ALERA do to help promote our field? Well, please let us have your suggestions, and any volunteers are welcome to try and help us to advance industrial relations and related areas in Australia. In closing, I'd like to say thank you to you all, including the ALERA 2021 conference team, who are behind the scenes, but nevertheless very important in helping to make such an event happen. Thank you very much to you all. Enjoy the rest of the conference.